Hi, everyone. I'm Carla. I'm a food addict, compulsive eater, and bulimic. And I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write them down, call them into my sponsor, and I eat those meals, nothing in between. And just for today, abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And my abstinence date is March 31st, 2007. It's really good to be here. This meeting was at a really great time for me. I was back in 2018, and it's funny to me. Looking back, I was like, oh, I can't go on a meeting with everybody everybody that's over in Europe. That'll be so weird. I'm not sure what I thought y'all were going to do. Anyhow. So it's really also rich to be on a meeting that still does the introductions. I really like that. Thank you. So, let's see. I manifest, my disease in all the ways you can imagine, including weight. And, I had to get to 325 pounds on my 5'1" frame before I was willing to come to Gray Sheet and do what you all do. And just before that, I spent 4 years in Overeaters Anonymous, and I'm very grateful for that. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have known about GreySheeters Anonymous. And I like to think that a sign of my higher power was, even though I got a really unpleasant view of Gray Sheet from some folks who weren't feeling all that great about it in OA, they're just obsessed with their food and they eat out of these giant troughs and la, la, la. And I was pretty negative. So I was all about, I was probably right there. But what I did get out of being in another 12-step food fellowship was that I was an addict, that I wasn't, it wasn't because I was crazy or weak-willed or stupid or any of the things that I had previously thought. It was pretty powerful to be able to let that go. So I'll jump back a little bit further. I was overweight as a child. I was born significantly after my siblings, and I kind of seemed to hang out with the adults. And so that when I was at my friends' birthday parties, I felt more comfortable hanging out with the moms. Or was it that, or was it the fact that they had control over the food? But I seemed to be helpful in those arenas when I wasn't at home. But, people like to feed me. And I get the sense that my brother and sister were a bit more finicky. Neither of them seemed to have the ism of this food variety. We'd go out to eat, which did not happen very often, but, my parents were just so happy because I'd clean my plate, and, I wasn't all that sure the ways I could make my parents happy. So I was sure, that was one that really worked well. My dad worked for a major food corporation. So we had staples in our house that seemed unusual, certain types of candies and lots of things that come out of a cow, moo things. And so I ate a lot. I snuck food. My mom was a sneak eater. She hid some, sugary things, and I made it my, attempt to find those, which I was usually pretty successful. And then I lied early on to say that, no, I hadn't done that. And I went on my first diet when I was 11. My mom sent me to school, with a half the things, and it was miserable. And so I just got my friends' items, and So I just kept, using food. When I was really young, it was so comforting. It was, I didn't know what to do with some of the pains of a lonely childhood. And food was pretty damn consistent. So I picked up other substances and people and such in high school. But food was always, number one. And my parents paid for me to go on a number of different big bucks diets, a few different times. I lost, between 60 and 80 pounds. But when I started, when this, even a remote sign of a normal body showed itself, I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to live in the world in a normal sized body. And when I would start getting attention, it was just really, that's when I would start eating again. And of course, looking back, it's easy to see that, the things I was choosing are things that I'm allergic to, but I, of course, didn't know that then. And, and it timing wise and food capitalism at the time was, getting rid of, a bad thing, getting rid of the fats and just dumping all kinds of sugar and stuff to, for all the reasons. And so I don't think that probably helped, but, and I also felt really self-righteous about, certain things. And I was big on the, well, I know I'll put it in the freezer because then I won't eat as many but what happened there was I just found out how great frozen things are. And, it was just bad. On a meeting the other day, Qualify was talking, and I was reminded of a time in my life that was really hard, which was I'll identify as queer now, but that, my parents really saw that the thing was you find a man, you get married, you have kids, you do the standard deal. And I wasn't really interested in men, but I felt like I needed to be. And there was it wouldn't be truthful to say that my parents would never say this to me outright, but it was really clear to me that because I was fat, I'd better lower my standards. And so I had some really awful years of dating where I thought I had to, looking back, I mean, this is a big word to use, but I just felt like the word I want to use is betraying myself. It wasn't that big, but I just don't have it. It just was so other than me. And I would eat and I would eat and I would eat. And, and two, a piece that was there was I did used to have this idea that if I didn't eat in public, I was fooling somebody, even though I was wearing my addiction, in some sort of floral polyester jobby because there were no cute clothes for heavy women back then. So anyhow, I was just getting by in life. I mean, I didn't go to school, didn't go to college. It was not a high value of my parents. I didn't think to have that conversation with them until I was a senior in high school and found out they had no plans for that to happen for me. And I didn't have the chutzpah, the will, the whatever to make it happen for myself then. But I am now. Well, we'll get to that later. So I just was in these, in jobs that didn't satisfy me. And I really, I wasn't really putting much into it. So I was just miserable, and I was being miserable to the people around me. And and so let's see, fast forward. My mom died when I was a really immature 28, and that was a pretty big wake-up call. It wasn't, my parents both had heart disease and cancer. But it was hard to be unmothered at that age. And it moved me into starting to get counseling. 5 minutes. Thank you so much, Laura. And that was good for me in a lot of ways. I went to a number of different counselors, all of whom in some way, shape, or form told me I was having a spiritual crisis. But I felt rejected by the only religion that I knew at my young age. I grew up in a pretty conservative area, way out west in Spokane, Washington. And so that didn't really resonate for me. And so anyhow, let me fast forward. So I was late in getting into relationships. I was about in my mid-30s. I'd been living alone for 9 years, and my disease had really progressed. I was ordering in food all the time, and I'd, order several meals, and it was, what had originally been grazing had moved into binging. And so when I moved in with my partner, I couldn't, it wasn't as easy to be with my lover food. And weird things like shortly into this, I just couldn't wait for her to leave. I just would crawl because she was at the house. And it didn't dawn on me actually till I was in GreySheeters. And I thought, I don't love her, or what if I had made a horrible mistake? But the reality is I wanted her out of the house so that I could eat. And I got caught because, I apparently couldn't wait for her to get to the car, and she'd forget something. She'd come back in, and I was already, getting my party together. And finally, she had a mini intervention with me and said, I think you're a powerful woman. I don't think you can do this alone. I think you're an addict. How about you get to those 12-step programs? She had a working relationship with, and so I did. So anyhow, got into Overeaters Anonymous. And then, so what I did there was, some spiritual stuff, got the piece that I wasn't alone. And, we started using the healthy versions of things, but it didn't matter that it was brown instead of white. I could binge it just as easily. And so I did 3 meals, sensible meals, nothing in between. But towards the end, a cocktail seemed sensible. If it was only one, it didn't matter that it had a ton of alcohol in it. But anyhow, and then I started lying to my sponsor, and I got out of it. I got out of OA and just kind of started visiting there because I knew I had a belly full of that program, and belly full of food and a bit of that program in my head. I knew I couldn't go to Weight Watchers. So I had some big life stuff happen, and started seeing the physical issues from my weight. And so I went to an OA annual event, and I saw 2 women there that were just glowing. They were doing the gray sheet. I said, "What are you doing?" "I want to do it." And so I did it. And, and I've been doing it ever since. I have no idea why I was struck abstinent. I see other people whose commitment would seem to be stronger than mine. Who knows? I mean, it's silly for me to think about those things. I just, I just try to keep my ears and my heart and my eyes open. I do a lot of service. It's really important to me. I do, I do the next thing in service world that seems like something I can't do. And I have been supported every step of the way. There is, and that is true for everything. If I had a food issue, if my sponsor went out when I was about 6 months in, and she had me doing all kinds of things. 1 minute. Thank you. So I've changed careers. And I have gone back to school. I have the pandemic. I realized, I don't want to get out of this world without my bachelor's degree. And so I have been going to school now for 3 years, and I love it so much. And it is so, I am building new neurons left and right, man. It is not as easy as it was when I made attempts earlier. And, you know, I am currently down visiting GreySheeters in the Bay Area. I have picked up a nomadic lifestyle since 2018. And I spent, I spent a good 4 months down in the Canyonlands of Utah. And I, you know, for anybody who's new, just reach out. There is no question that someone else hasn't asked. And people have been here for me when I couldn't find the right toenail clippers, to when I had knee surgery, to when I had to get, you know, and my marriage ended. It's the place to be. My time is up. Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, everyone, no matter what.